The vast emptiness of space stretched before the exploration vessel horizon, its sleek metal hull cutting through the darkness like a silent arrow. Captain Ji-won Park stood at the bridge, her eyes fixed on the holographic display showing a tiny, unremarkable planet in the distant Gamma Quadrant. The planet looked lifeless at first glance. Brownish-gray landscapes covered with sparse vegetation and rocky terrain suggested nothing more than another dead world. But something caught Ji-won's attention, a faint heat signature that didn't match typical geological readings. Hyun-ki, she called to her first officer, zoom in on these coordinates. The hologram shifted, revealing a small settlement nestled in a shallow valley. Creatures moved about, tiny, almost transparent beings with membrane-like appendages that shifted colors with every movement. They looked fragile, almost like living glass sculptures moving across a barren landscape. Nirali, Hyun-ki whispered, pulling up historical records. A species marked as non-viable by the Galactic Council. Most exploratory teams have completely ignored them. Ji-won leaned closer. The Nirali moved with a strange grace, their bodies communicating through subtle color changes. They seemed to be gathering resources, carrying small containers made from what looked like local plant materials. Their movements were careful, almost calculated. Prepare a landing probe, Ji-won ordered. I want detailed biological and environmental scans. The probe descended slowly, its advanced sensors capturing every minute detail of the Nirali settlement. The creatures noticed immediately, their bodies shifting to deep blue, a color that seemed to indicate caution or fear. What intrigued Ji-won most was how the Nirali worked together. Despite their seemingly fragile nature, they moved with a collective purpose. When one struggled with a heavy container, others immediately adjusted their positions to help. Their communication was silent but incredibly complex. Hyun-ki's research revealed a brutal history. Multiple galactic species had passed by this planet, each declaring the Nirali too weak to merit attention. They were considered evolutionary failures, a species unlikely to survive, let alone develop any significant technology. But Ji-won saw something different. She saw resilience. The landing probe continued its detailed survey. The Nirali lived in small, interconnected structures that seemed to grow from the local environment. They used minimal resources, adapting perfectly to their harsh planetary conditions. Their technology was primitive by galactic standards, but their survival skills were remarkable. They've been surviving here for thousands of years, Hyun-ki noted, reading the probe's data. With almost no external resources in conditions that would destroy most species. Ji-won watched as a group of young Nirali worked together to repair a damaged water collection system. Their movements were synchronized, each knowing exactly what the other needed without verbal communication. It was a level of cooperation that most advanced civilizations struggled to achieve. The probe captured something unexpected, complex neural networks that suggested an intelligence far beyond their simple appearance. Their brains seemed to function differently, with connections that human scientists had never encountered before. We're going to make first contact, Ji-won announced suddenly. Hyun-ki looked surprised. The Council advises against interaction with non-viable species. The Council has been wrong before, she replied, her decision already made. As the horizon prepared for landing procedures, the Nirali on the planet's surface began to change colors, a mixture of deep blue and soft green. It almost looked like anticipation. Something extraordinary was about to happen. A species everyone had forgotten was about to meet the one civilization in the galaxy willing to see their true potential. The first human shuttle began its descent towards the Nirali settlement, carrying with it a promise of something more than simple first contact. It carried hope. The landing shuttle touched down gently, sending small dust clouds billowing across the rocky terrain. Captain Ji-won Park and her team carefully prepared their environmental suits, each movement calculated and precise. Yoon-ah Lee, the team's xenobiologist, checked her scanning equipment one last time. The Nirali settlement looked different up close. What seemed like simple structures from orbital view were actually intricate living networks. The buildings seemed to breathe, their membrane-like walls shifting and adapting to the surrounding environment. As the shuttle door opened, the Nerali immediately noticed. Their bodies changed colors rapidly, a complex language of light and pigmentation that no human had ever fully understood. Some turned deep blue, signaling fear. Others shifted to a pale green, which seemed to indicate curiosity. The first Nerali to approach was young, perhaps what they would consider an adolescent. Its body was more translucent than the others, with intricate neural pathways visible through its membrane-like skin. It moved forward cautiously, one delicate tendril extended, slightly. Yunki remained close to Jiwan, his hand near his communication device. "They're studying us as much as we're studying them," he whispered. The young Nerali stopped just a few meters from the human team. Its body began a complex light show, blues, greens, and soft purples dancing across its surface. Yuna's equipment worked overtime trying to translate these color patterns. "It's communication," she breathed. "Not just emotional response, these are actual words." Jiwan took a careful step forward. She knew that sudden movements could trigger a panic response. The Nerali were known for their extreme caution, a survival mechanism developed over thousands of years in their harsh environment. The team's translator device began to pick up fragments, broken words that suggested complex meanings. Visitors, different, not like others. Other Nerali began to emerge from their living structures. They moved with a collective intelligence, each individual part of a larger connected system. Where one might be weak, the group became strong. Yuna noticed something extraordinary. The Nerali weren't just listening or observing. They were actively processing information, their bodies changing color and shape to represent complex thoughts. Group of elder Nerali approached, their bodies showing deeper, more muted colors. These seemed to be their leaders or decision-makers. They moved in a synchronized pattern, each step carefully coordinated. "We mean no harm," Jiwan spoke slowly, knowing the translator might not capture all nuances. The elder Nerali's response was unexpected. Instead of fear or aggression, they began to create intricate light patterns. It was almost like a dance, with colors and movements that suggested both caution and deep intelligence. Yunki's scanner showed something remarkable. The Nerali's communication wasn't just visual. There were subtle electromagnetic pulses accompanying their color changes, creating a multi-layered form of communication humans had never seen before. Hours passed. The initial tension slowly transformed into something else. The Nerali began to show signs of genuine curiosity. Some younger ones moved closer, their tendrils almost touching the human environmental suits. One small Nerali, barely more than a child by their standards, reached out and touched Yun-A's gloved hand. The touch was brief, but it sent a surge of data through her scanning equipment. "They're trying to understand us," Yuna said, her voice filled with wonder. "Not just observe, understand." As the first day of contact came to an end, something unprecedented was happening. A species everyone had written off as too weak, too primitive, was showing levels of intelligence and adaptability that challenged everything the galaxy thought it knew. The Nerali had survived, and now they were ready to do more than just survive. The human research base sat quietly on the edge of the Nerali settlement, a stark metal structure against the organic, breathing landscape of the alien world. Daehyun Choi watched through the observation window as the Nerali worked with the basic technological components his team had carefully introduced. What started as simple solar collection modules had transformed into something entirely unexpected. The Nerali didn't just learn technology, they reimagined it completely. Their first breakthrough came unexpectedly. Where humans had designed rigid solar panels, the Nerali created living energy collectors that looked more like plant-like structures. These new designs could adapt to changing light conditions, shifting and moving to maximize energy absorption in ways no human engineer had ever conceived. Yun's research team was stunned. The Nerali weren't just copying human technology, they were improving it fundamentally. Their unique biological structure allowed them to see technological challenges from a perspective completely different from human understanding. Communication networks were their next remarkable achievement. Instead of using traditional electronic signals, the Neurali developed a system that mimicked their own bioluminescent language. Information traveled through light and electromagnetic pulses, creating a communication network that was nearly impossible to interrupt or hack. "They're not just learning," Daehyun told Ji-won during one of their daily briefings. "They're rewriting the entire concept of technology." The young Neurali who had first touched the human team during first contact, now called Lyra by the research team, seemed to be at the center of most technological developments. Its body could literally transform to demonstrate complex engineering concepts, creating three-dimensional light projections that explained ideas more clearly than any human diagram. Water management became another area of incredible innovation. The Neurali's planet was harsh and dry with limited water resources. Their new technologies could extract moisture from the air with 300% more efficiency than human systems. They created living filtration networks that cleaned and redistributed water like biological circulatory systems. Some galactic science databases began to take notice. Reports started circulating about the strange technological developments happening on this previously ignored planet. The most shocking moment came during a simple problem-solving exercise. Daehyun presented the Neurali with a complex engineering challenge, designing a communication relay that could work in extreme electromagnetic interference. Within hours, not days or weeks, the Neurali created a solution. Their design used principles of organic adaptation. The communication relay could literally reshape its internal structure to overcome signal disruptions. It was biological engineering and technological design merged into something entirely new. Ji-won realized they were witnessing something historic. The Neurali weren't just learning human technology, they were showing humanity entirely new ways of thinking about technological development. They see technology as a living thing, Yuna explained during a research briefing, not as a collection of metal and circuits, but as something that can grow, adapt, and solve problems organically. The human team became less teachers and more collaborative partners. The Neurali's rapid learning and innovative thinking meant traditional mentor-student relationships quickly evolved into mutual research partnerships. Their electromagnetic communication networks began attracting attention from scientific communities across different star systems. How could a species previously considered primitive develop such advanced technological concepts? As months passed, the small Neurali settlement transformed. Living structures now incorporated advanced technological components. Energy collectors that looked like beautiful shifting sculptures powered complex research facilities. Water management systems created green zones in previously barren landscapes. Lyra, the young Neurali who had first initiated contact, became a symbol of this technological revolution. Its body could now create complex holographic projections, demonstrate advanced engineering concepts, and communicate with a depth that challenged everything known about alien intelligence. The technological awakening of the Neurali was more than just a scientific breakthrough. It was a testament to potential, to the idea that intelligence and capability could emerge from the most unexpected places. The Galactic Council chamber erupted in chaos. Representatives from dozens of advanced civilizations shouted and gestured, their holographic images flickering with anger. At the center of the storm stood Ji-won Park, calm and composed. "Humans are interfering with natural evolutionary processes," thundered a Rigelian ambassador, his scaled skin turning a deep crimson. "The Neurali are not ready for advanced technologies." Ji-won listened carefully. She knew the real issue wasn't concern for the Neurali, it was fear. Fear of a new potential competitor in the galactic landscape. The Zorax delegation was particularly aggressive. Their representative, a towering crystalline being, projected holographic data showing the rapid technological developments on the Neurali homeworld. "In mere months, they've developed communication technologies that challenge our most advanced systems," it accused. Behind the diplomatic tension, something more significant was happening. The Neurali were developing defensive capabilities that no one expected. Lyra, the young Neurali who had become a symbol of their technological awakening, was now leading their technological defense development. Their first protective systems were unlike anything in galactic military databases. Instead of traditional weapons, they created adaptive electromagnetic shields that could literally change their defensive structure in milliseconds. Hyun-Ki transmitted the latest research data to Ji-won. The Neurali's defensive technologies were based on their unique biological adaptation capabilities. They could modify their protective systems faster than any computer could predict or counter. The Galactic Council's emergency session continued. Multiple species demanded immediate restrictions on human involvement with the Neurali. They presented complex legal arguments about technological non-interference protocols. "You're treating them like a resource to be controlled," Ji-won responded quietly. "Not like a living, intelligent species with potential." Her words carried a weight that silenced the chamber momentarily. The human approach was fundamentally different. Where other species saw weakness, humans saw possibility. Back on the Neurali homeworld, the technological developments continued at an unprecedented rate. Their living communication networks now covered their entire planet. Energy systems that looked more like intricate biological networks provided power more efficiently than any known galactic technology. The Neurali weren't just learning, they were evolving. Dae-hyun's research team discovered something extraordinary. The Neurali's technological adaptations were actually changing their own biological structures. Their bodies were becoming more complex, more integrated with the technologies they were developing. "They're not just using technology," Yuna reported. "They're becoming technology." The Galactic Council's resistance grew more intense. Economic sanctions were discussed. Threats of technological embargoes were made. But the humans stood firm. Lyra and the other Neurali leaders watched these galactic political maneuvers with a calm that surprised the human team. Their communication networks now allowed them to understand complex interstellar political dynamics in ways no one had anticipated. "They're analyzing the political conflict like a complex problem to be solved," Hyun-Ki observed, watching their color-based communication patterns. The turning point came unexpectedly. The Neurali developed a communication encryption method that made all existing galactic communication systems look primitive. It wasn't just a technological breakthrough, it was a complete reimagining of information transfer. Suddenly, the conversation changed. From accusations of interference, the discussion shifted to understanding. How had this supposedly weak species developed such advanced capabilities? The human approach of respect, patience, and genuine partnership had created something unprecedented. The Neurali were no longer seen as a passive species to be controlled, but as potential partners in technological development. As the Galactic Council debates continued, one thing became clear. The Neurali were no longer the forgotten species. They were becoming a force that would reshape galactic understanding of intelligence, technology, and potential. And it all started with a simple act of human compassion. 5 years had passed since the first human contact with the Neurali. The small planet that once seemed insignificant now buzzed with unprecedented technological activity. Lyra stood at the center of the Neurali's primary research complex. A living structure that breathed and shifted like a massive organic computer. Around her, the young Neurali researchers worked with a precision that defied everything the galaxy thought it knew about their species. The breakthrough came quietly, almost unexpectedly, a quantum communication technology that solved decades-old interstellar communication challenges. Where previous systems struggled with signal integrity and speed, the Neurali created something entirely different. Their solution wasn't just a technological fix. It was a complete reimagining of how information could travel across vast cosmic distances. Ji-won watched the presentation to the Galactic Council, her heart racing. The same species once considered evolutionary failures were now presenting a solution that could revolutionize interstellar communication. The Neurali communication system used principles that merged biological adaptation with quantum mechanics. Signals could now travel faster, more securely, and with unprecedented clarity. It wasn't just an improvement. It was a fundamental transformation of communication technology. Representatives from species that once dismissed the Neurali now sat in stunned silence. The crystalline Zorax delegation, which had been most vocal in opposing human intervention, now looked particularly uncomfortable. This technology, Lyra explained, her body creating complex light patterns that served as both visual and electromagnetic communication, adapts continuously. It learns. It grows. Hyun-Ki leaned towards Ji-won. "They've done more than create a communication system," he whispered. "They've created a living network." The implications were massive. Interstellar communication had always been limited by technological constraints. The Nerali solution removed those constraints entirely. Signals could now travel across thousands of light years with near-perfect integrity, adapting to any interference. Daehyun's research team had been instrumental in supporting the Nerali's development, but even they were surprised by the final product. This wasn't just advanced technology, it was a completely new approach to understanding information transfer. The Galactic Council chamber fell silent. The Nerali delegation, a group of carefully selected representatives, stood calm and composed. Their bodies shifted with subtle color changes, communicating complex ideas faster than any verbal language could. "We offer this technology not as a weapon," Lyra said, "but as a bridge, a way to connect rather than divide." Economic projections began to flood communication networks. The value of this single technological breakthrough was almost incalculable. Communication companies that had dominated galactic markets for centuries now faced complete obsolescence. But it wasn't just about technology. The Nerali had proven something more important. Potential could emerge from the most unexpected places. Intelligence wasn't about initial appearances, but about adaptability, creativity, and collective growth. Ji-won remembered the first day they landed on this planet, a world everyone had ignored. A species everyone had written off as too weak to survive. Now they were about to change the entire understanding of technological development. The human approach of compassion and respect had been vindicated. Where other species saw weakness, humans had seen potential. Where others would have passed by, humans had stopped to listen, to understand, to help. As the Galactic Council deliberations continued, one thing became clear. The Nerali were no longer a forgotten species. They were a beacon of hope, a demonstration of what could happen when intelligence was nurtured rather than suppressed. Lyra looked towards Ji-won, her body creating a complex light pattern that seemed almost like a smile. They had done something extraordinary.